This is Supreme Headquarters, Allied Expeditionary Force, General Dwight D. Eisenhower.
People of Western Europe. A landing was made this morning on the coast of France by troops of the Allied Expeditionary Force. This landing is part of the concerted United Nations plan for the liberation of Europe. Soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force, you are about to embark upon the Great Crusade.
How was it that it happened here? The Normandy coast, then as now, is a mostly barren stretch. No big strategic cities, no major harbors, no quick route into Germany. How was it then that the D-Day planners chose this place, that moment, for one of history's biggest gambles? Part of the reason came from hard lessons learned here, Dieppe, a French port 100 miles from Normandy. This Allied raid, 2 years before D-Day, was a disaster. The defending Germans killed, wounded, or captured 3/4 of the invaders, most of them Canadians. For the Allies, the lessons of Dieppe were clear. Never invade without heavy air and naval bombardment first. Go in with overwhelming numbers of troops and avoid heavily defended ports. At the time of the Dieppe failure, the Soviet Red Army was in a death struggle with the Germans. Millions were dying on both sides. Soviet leader Stalin demanded that his American and British allies open a second front against the Germans to take the pressure off. Always the cynic, Stalin suspected that Britain and America were content to stand back and let Russia and Germany destroy each other. To appease Stalin, America's Roosevelt and Britain's Churchill ordered that invasion plans be drawn up. North Africa is not the place the Americans had in mind, but that's where they landed in November 1942. American planners favored invading northern France, but Britain objected. The British argued that a French landing was too risky, and besides, Britain needed American help in defeating the Germans in North Africa. Despite American misgivings, the African campaign did pay some dividends. Not only did it rout the Germans, it also cleared supply routes into Russia, and it gave the untested U.S. troops and most of their generals their first real taste of battle. American forces quickly put that experience to work. The target was the German-held island of Sicily, just off Italy. The British and American forces made fast work of it. Then they set off to invade Italy itself. Britain's Churchill favored this strategy. He called Italy the soft underbelly of German-occupied Europe, that this was the best route into Germany and the Nazis' ultimate defeat. But the Allies soon discovered the soft underbelly was a tough gut. The rugged Italian terrain favored the German defenders. It was not the best route into Germany that Churchill had believed, and that strengthened America's case for stabbing at Germany through a landing in northern France. America's clout was growing by the day. It had become a powerhouse of production, both in soldiers and supplies. President Roosevelt called it the arsenal of democracy. By 1944, the Allied war machine was tested, oiled, and ready, and the British had finally agreed with the Americans. It would be a cross-channel invasion of France. The place would be Normandy. Why there? For one, because the Germans had been tricked. They were expecting the invasion far to the north. But Normandy would be no pushover. The Germans had made it a death trap of concrete and steel. Any invaders would be made to pay a huge price, something America's president acknowledged in an Invasion Eve prayer.
Almighty God, our sons, pride of our nation, this day have set upon a mighty endeavor, a struggle to preserve our republic, our religion, and our civilization. and to set free a suffering humanity. Lead them straight and true. Give strength to their arms, stoutness to their hearts, steadfastness in their faith. They will need thy blessings. Their road will be long and hard. With thy blessing, we shall prevail over the unholy forces of our enemy. Help us to conquer the apostles of greed and racial arrogances. Lead us to the saving of our country, and with our sister nations into a world unity that will spell a sure peace. Thy will be done, Almighty God.
This is D-Day, the Hollywood version. It's the famous movie, The Longest Day. An American paratrooper floating into German gunfire, but he never hits ground. His chute catches on a church steeple, and he dangles there, unnoticed by the Germans. And then... the episode is true. It actually happened in those first deadly hours of D-Day. George Zimsky knows. He was there, and that was his best friend, Johnny Steele, hanging up there.
There was a machine gun mounted in the church steeple that was firing next to him, so he says, I better lay quiet and play dead.
George and Johnny were paratroopers, that's George on the left, part of the 82nd Airborne Division, and their D-Day assignment was this. They would fly from England just after midnight of June 6th. Then they would jump into the darkness over the French town of Sainte-Mare-Église. They were to fight and defeat the Germans and take the town. Then they would cut enemy supply lines to Utah Beach, where American soldiers would storm ashore at daylight. The plan was as simple as it was dangerous. Some said suicidal. To get ready, George Zimsky and his comrades trained like never before. Practice jumps, hill climbs, mock combat, non-stop marches.
We were hard as nails. These guys, some of them were really, really in good shape. I was too, of course.
And they had to be. The average paratrooper was taking more than 100 pounds of gear into combat, all of it strapped to his body. This was it. The invasion was on. More than 10,000 U.S. paratroopers, 18 to a plane, loaded into hundreds of aircraft. And on the planes, they noticed something new. What they saw were these black and white stripes painted around the wings and the fuselage. They were called invasion stripes, and all Allied aircraft suddenly had them. It was hoped the stripes would mean instant identification and thus avoid friends shooting at friends. Many flew over the English Channel without trouble, but they hit fog near the French coast. Planes collided. Men were dropped in the wrong places. Many drowned before firing a shot. George Zimsky and his plane load were lucky. Their pilot got them to the right place at the right time.
The jump master gets a signal from the crew chief that we're approaching the target area, which the pathfinders had set up on the ground. Then the jump master orders the troopers to stand up and hook up. Now you have what's known as a static line that attaches to a cable that runs the length of the C-47 with a device that snaps onto the cable. As you stand up and hook up, you check each man's equipment in front of you. Number one says, number one, okay. Number two, okay, all the way down to the end. And the jump master says, go, and out the door we go.
Zimski jumped. He had no problem holding onto his Thompson machine gun, but his steel helmet came loose and it fell into the darkness. There he was, dropping into combat with no head protection. When he hit the ground, a miracle. In the dark, he found his own helmet, and just in time.
I was hit in the helmet, right front side, went right around, went out the back. That had to be a rifle bullet or a machine gun bullet. You're always lucky when it's a near miss.
There were plenty of near misses in the next hours. Zimski's unit was up against the SS, Germany's best and most fanatical fighters. But the Americans took the town, though it was literally a fight to the death.
The SS guys were tough. It was so dark that you couldn't see anything, and all of a sudden all hell breaks loose because we're right on top of them. And we were in a position where there's no way they could beat us. And very, very many Germans were destroyed that morning.
George Zimski was on the battlefield for 33 straight days, and the casualties were frightful.
The average parachute company is approximately 120 men. We were down to 19 men.
At his home today, he has his mementos of those terrible times, his actual jump boots, preserved in bronze. On his wall, a photo of his unit, Company F, taken just before D-Day, made 80% of these men casualties. George has been back to the battleground since the war to celebrate his good fortune and to remember.
I've never went there yet where I don't visit the cemeteries. I can see the individual. I get to the point where I have to walk away because I can't handle it anymore.
Today, there are many reminders, many tributes. If you look up at the church steeple in Saint-Mary-Glisse, you'll see one. It's a mannequin of a paratrooper, where George Zimski's friend somehow survived D-Day.
I didn't think I'd have a chance. Nothing. My buddies were dying right next to me. And I couldn't save them. What the heck? I was trying to save myself.
Omaha Beach, the first men to go in. It was 50 years ago, but Russ Anderson can see it, feel it, smell it. The pain survives, but so does the pride. It's there in his battle ribbons and there on his unit shoulder patch, the 1st Infantry Division, the legendary Big Red One.
The Big Red One, when we went in, they said, now this is the sharpest division in the United States. That's what they told us. It was true. I thought it was.
Russ Anderson and the 1st Infantry. They were combat veterans before D-Day. They had fought the Germans in North Africa, then in Sicily. Big fights, tough fights, but nothing like what was coming. They were shipped to England and sealed off in a South Coast port. Like the rest of the invasion force, they trained and they waited. They were ordered on their ships and off their ships, then on again, then off. Tension feeding fear.
The night before, the Germans had been down there and bombed those ships, but they didn't hit them. The night before. I was scared to get on that boat.
But he got on, and they all did. In the pre-dawn dark of June 6th, they would sail to a point off the South English coast, hook up with the full invasion force, then race cross-channel into the Normandy beaches. Nearly 6,000 ships, history's biggest armada. One beach was codenamed Omaha. That's where Russ Anderson was headed in the first wave. His regiment was to knock out the big German guns high on the bluffs above the beach. This is a model of a World War II destroyer. These heavily armed ships gave Russ Anderson and the infantry divisions some measure of protection as they set out across the channel toward Normandy and the waiting Germans. But the big ships could offer only limited protection. Once the troops neared the beaches, they'd be on their own. A British lighthouse keeper watched the invasion force set sail. He said to his wife, "We should pray for them. A lot of men are going to die tonight." The lighthouse keeper was right.
They told us that we were going to run into stiff resistance and that it was going to really be bad.
Not only bad, but worse than expected. Invasion planners had failed to detect thousands more German troops in the region, and German shore batteries were firing at full strength, That was not supposed to happen.
The bombers were supposed to take all this stuff out. They didn't do it.
The regiment in front of Anderson's was slaughtered in the water. Most men never made shore. Anderson's unit was next. They were drenched, seasick, terrified. They were ordered to go for the beach.
Those that fell, they were falling left and right, and nobody could help them. They just laid there, you know. Some were hollering for help, and you couldn't help them. I walked through a minefield up there to go up on the hill, and the guy in the front was leading the way. Guys right behind me stepped on him.
Anderson's luck held, despite an exploding German shell.
I got hit in the back in my mess kit, and that darn thing hit me. I could feel it hit me, but I was going downward, see? So it just went in like that.
By the end of the day, 34,000 Americans had struggled onto Omaha Beach. To the survivors, the name would forever be Bloody Omaha.
It was so bad you wouldn't believe it. I must have seen over 3,000 of them laying dead. Some of them were still kicking, you know, and couldn't move, and some leg blowing off, and some arms blowing off.
Despite many close calls, Russ Anderson continued the fight. Many Germans did not. They were captured or surrendered, glad to be out of the war. One was so happy he gave Anderson his photograph and other personal items.
He didn't think that we'd ever get up to Germany. But he says another thing, he says, I never thought you'd come in here. He was a nice guy.
Anderson's feelings were usually not that charitable toward the Germans. Sometime after the landings, they had his company pinned down with ground fire. He was on a hill just beyond Omaha Beach, and then he saw them. 2 German planes swooping in with bombs and machine gun fire. Anderson quickly realized he was in the wrong place.
They came from out on the water. They dropped 2 bombs or 3 bombs out there. Then they headed right straight towards me, and I was laying on the hill and strafing, you know, as they come in. Just before they hit me, or going to hit me, they went up in the air. Boy, I was really lucky.
A few days later, Russ Anderson's luck changed, suddenly and dramatically.
I got blown out of my foxhole, and I was unconscious for 9 days, and then I lost the hearing in this ear.
The war was over for Russ Anderson. He spent the next 9 months in a British hospital, then it was home to the U.S. When he got home, he still had this, a Bible he got from his hometown church before the war. The Bible stayed with him, in fact, on him, through all those harrowing days before, during, and after D-Day.
I carried this all through the war. I never kept anything else here but this.
He's never returned to where it all happened, but his mind is often there, and he sees faces of fallen comrades, one in particular.
He was a Southerner, and he drowned. I missed him right away, but he didn't make it.
How many others didn't make it that long, terrible day? The exact number will never be known, but these are the estimates. Allied soldiers, sailors, airmen killed in action, 2,500. That includes Americans, British, Canadians, French, and other Allied forces. 7,500 wounded. And the German D-Day losses, between 4,000 and 8,000 killed and wounded. For those who served on D-Day, the ties to Normandy and each other remain strong. Those who stand together in remembrance are more than just old friends. They are family. And for many, this marks the last big celebration of what General Eisenhower called the Great Crusade.
You grew like brothers. You were a family. A chain was only as strong as the weakest link, and you didn't want to be the weakest link.
As the Allies look back on a great victory, German veterans remember their fallen comrades. The Germans have been excluded from most of the official commemorations. Yet, symbols of reconciliation can be seen, like a simple handshake between French and German veterans. The soldiers of D-Day, most now in their 70s, have indeed mounted a new invasion on the beaches at Normandy, only this time they come with a different perspective. Again, the skies over Normandy fill with parachutes, and the circle is complete.
Dussac, 101st Airborne Division. Mr. Dussac is 83 years old. He is our oldest jumper today.
Are you okay? I jump all the time. This is nothing.
They told us there was going to be mud up to our ankles and up to our hips, and it was super, the jump.
When you jump in combat, I made 4 of them. You load it down with ammunition. You get out at 900, and it's night and somebody's shooting at you. Would you be afraid?
To men like these, D-Day represents more than just a military operation. It stands for a strong ideal and a strong tie to the people of England and France.
After D-Day, it took freedom another year to reach the Elbe. It took another 44 years to reach Warsaw and Prague and East Berlin. And now it has reached Kiev and Moscow and even beyond.
Whenever the going has been hardest, Britons and Americans have stood together in unity of belief.
That single word on the British tour bus says it all. This is special. Certainly for the returning GIs, the American boy soldiers of 50-some years ago, the ones who streamed into Britain to join the fight. It's special, too, for the British. During the war, they called these friendly invaders from America Yanks, among other things. Some British grumbled the Americans were overpaid, oversexed, and overhere. Today, it's a fond remembrance.
They always wanted to give you things. I remember American gave me a half a pound of butter once. And I thought it was the world because we only had 2 ounces a week.
I remember the Americans coming to Weymouth and making it such a happy place when they came, because they gave the children such a wonderful time. And also, we know it was a very, very sad time.
Looking at them today, peaceful, picturesque, it's hard to imagine these South English ports as springboards for the biggest invasion in history. They were choked with soldiers, ships, every implement of war. For many Americans, this would be their last view of friendly territory, friendly people, their last view ever. For the survivors, the veterans, there's much to see here today. There's Southwick House, headquarters for their invasion commander, Dwight Eisenhower. It was here he said, "Okay, we'll go," and history's biggest, riskiest invasion was on. Nearby, the Golden Lion pub. Here, Eisenhower discussed the invasion with Britain's General Montgomery, Monty. At the D-Day Museum, the invasion story is told in 34 cloth panels. It's a hand-stitched tapestry stretching 272 feet. And like the war, it took 5 years to complete. There are many museums, many landmarks to help bring it alive for those who were here and for those who were not.
I've heard about it all our married life, and it's very exciting and very moving to see the actual places.
I've been here several times since the war, but this particularly with all the displays that they're having, are really, bring back memories that had faded.
The memories have not faded for Betty Hockney. She was in an English dance line that entertained the troops with hundreds of shows. And she remembers one night with a special connection between her dance troupe and American bomber crews.
It happened to be their 100th bombing mission that particular night, and our 100th show to the Americans. So the tie is great.
The tie is great. On this British soil, it's easy to see that the Yanks are well remembered. In Normandy, like so many battlefields, the monuments to the fallen